Just a second, guys. All right, so our audio died, so I have my headphones on now so I can make sure if that happens again, I know this time. We were almost done, but I wanted to make sure we actually got through to the end. So if you're just tuning in, you have to go back and watch the first hour. Let me see if I can figure out exactly where we were, at least what we were talking about. Basically, we were talking about how certain types of people have been invalidated when they shouldn't be. And I was using myself as an example, saying that, you know, reading Eighth Circuit Ascension by Turetsky and Winsgate right now, a lot of the ideas and whatnot, especially that pertain to finding the mechanisms behind parapsychological phenomena, because I don't have letters behind my name, nobody would listen to me, you know. And then it occurred to me that that wasn't exactly true anymore because of AI. And so I had these concepts that I couldn't formalize because I have no mathematical training, but AI could. And so I actually sent some of this stuff to Turetsky, who wrote this book that I'm reading. And the only response she gave was, "Can I show these to my colleagues?" So I did manage to get these ideas in front of some academics because of AI. You know, we're able to speak the language of the people that we need to communicate with, if vicariously, you know. So I was just offering that as sort of a bit of encouragement, you know, to people, that if you ascertain the circumstances and you conform to the postulate of success, which is that any change or effect may be caused by applying the proper kind and degree of force to the proper medium to the proper object. Right? So I'm sure that's not quite as good as it was the first time around, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. So let's see if I can figure out exactly where. I think we're on page 106. Well, let's just start here. We're talking about stagnation in the astral light and the consequences of that, basically the magnetic current of established ideas and the mass amplifying the pull of that magnetic current. This phenomena, which have quite recently perturbed America and Europe as regards table turning and fluidic manifestations, are simply magnetic currents at the beginning of their formation. Appeals on the part of nature inviting us for the good of humanity to reestablish the great sympathetic and religious chains. As a fact, stagnation in the astral light would mean death to the human race and torpor in the secret agent, which already been manifested by alarming symptoms of decomposition and death. For example, cholera morbus, the potato disease, and the blight of the grape are traceable solely to this cause, as the two young shepherds of La Salette saw darkly and symbolically in their dream. The unlooked-for credit which has awaited their narrative, and the vast concourse of pilgrims attracted by a statement so singular and at the same time so vague that these two children without instruction and almost without morality are proofs of the magnetic reality of the fact and the fluidic tendency of the earth itself to operate the cure of its inhabitants. That is super poignant. To operate the cure of its inhabitants. So we have right now in Africa and a certain island, it may be in Louisiana or off the coast or something, I can't recall the island, but the rattlesnakes stop making rattles because they know it gets them killed. Well, they don't know, but something knows, obviously. And elephants are not growing tusks because they don't want to get shot. But the most interesting is this acacia tree that has stopped producing a tannin that gets it cut down. And it has done so in seasons, not in 10,000 years or a million years. So we have these context-aware adaptations happening that seem to imply that there is some sort of teleology or intelligence in nature that is aware of the context, that it needs to happen quickly, right? So now we have this knowledge reemerging at this crossroads in humanity. This is exactly the antidote to the crisis of purpose and all of the other things that have been leveling humanity over the last few years. It is the same sort of adaptation that the acacia tree, that it transcends even epigenetics. It's beyond that as an explanation. And that is that magnetic field operating the cure of its inhabitants. Superstitions are instinctive, and all that is instinctive is founded in the very nature of things, to which the skeptics of all times have given insufficient attention. This is an important thing to consider as well. We are told to trust our intuition, but we're also told that intuition isn't real, And that second part is almost not even relevant. I just kind of threw it in there. But we also know that our subconscious is where our trauma-driven behaviors originate. This is also where our intuition comes from. How do we trust this intuition that has its source in this diabolical automaton that governs our life? There is an answer, and I'm not going to give it right now because I'm going to talk about it in the narcissist stream tomorrow. But it's something to consider when you're trying to understand the demonization of parapsychological phenomena. It's more than just trying to separate people from their power, although it does that. There is sort of a almost instinctive reason for this. We attribute then all the strange phenomena of table turning to the universal magnetic agent in search of a chain of enthusiasms with a view to the formation of fresh currents. Table turning. We must overturn the tables and disconnect the cables. This place don't make sense to me anymore. Can you tell me where we're going, senor? Is it Lincoln County or Armageddon? Bob Dylan, senor. Tales of Yankee Power. But yeah, a solvent coagula he brought up earlier, the system doing what it's doing now, consuming itself, destroying itself. There's a formula here. The pieces must separate in order for there to be the possibility of movement, right? If you have a machine where the cogs are interlaced, they're going to do what the cogs do. But if there's some separation, they can reconfigure, and maybe this time they're going to reconnect this way. Very crude explanation. But the thing is, if the if the dissolution is too violent, if there's too much separation, when the components come back together, they slam together too violently and destroy the system that is undergoing this table turning. And that's where we are on this planet right now. We are in the solve phase. And the problem is that the constituent elements have so much force driving them that the reconfiguration could be too violent. At the same time, that force is potential energy. And if it does not destroy the system, it will become kinetic. And the effect is directly commensurate with how much energy is present in the system, right? So the potential is exactly correlated with the level of existential threat. The force of itself is blind, but it can be directed by the will of man and is influenced by prevailing opinions. This universal fluid, if we decide to regard it as a fluid, being the common medium of all nervous organisms and the vehicle of all sensitive vibrations, establishes an actual physical solidarity between impressionable persons and transmits from one to another the impression of imagination and of thought. The movement of the inert object, determined by the undulations of the universal agent, obeys the ruling impression and reproduces in its revelations at one time all the lucidity of the most wonderful visions, and at another all the eccentricity and falsehood of the most vague and incoherent dreams. The blows resounding on furniture, the clattering of dishes, the self-playing of musical instruments are illusions produced by the same cause. This is an interesting bit here on a couple of levels. Let me reorganize my thoughts. Okay, so the eccentricity and falsehood of vague and incoherent dreams. A lot of manifestation coaches want to sell people the idea that anything you think you can just have. If that was true, then every New Age housewife on earth would be driving an amethyst Lamborghini or whatever, you know. Clearly that's not the case. So what is the difference between an effective manifestation and these sort of wish demons and pipe dreams? Alignment with purpose, right? And the law of necessity applies to all things. All universal laws apply to all systems. That includes your goals, hopes, weems, and wishes. So the reality is, if it is some sense necessary and congruent with the amplification and diversification of life and experience, then you will find that your will is reinforced, that the magnetic agent is to some extent at your command. This again is reiterating the travesty of the global crisis of purpose, but also implies how wonderful the rectification, if we can correct this. The miracles of the convulsionaries of Saint Medard were of the same order and seemed frequently to suspend the laws of nature. On the one hand, exaggeration produced by fascination, which is the special quality of intoxication occasioned by congestions of the astral light. On the other, actual oscillations or movements impressed upon inert matter, such by the subtle and universal agent of motion in life. Okay, so I forgot something. He mentioned the self-playing of instruments, right? When I first moved to the Sacred Valley, I was in this... I was high up surrounded by peaks that had a lot of caves in them, right? And my guitar, the A string, would just suddenly bong, and it did it all the time. And it was kind of freaking me out, It's like, do I have a ghost in here? Like, what is this? And then someone mentioned to me that there are crystal veins, quartz crystal, and that they're often in plates that touch, right? And so there are shifts. And when this happens, there's a piezoelectric effect. And I thought, holy shit, the caves are amplifying these crystals rubbing together, and I'm getting a sympathetic vibration in my guitar string. By the way, that string was tuned to A440, not 432. So take note of that. And it's funny because when I did this before the audio went out, I told that story, and then I came back and read "Oppressed upon inert matter by the subtle and universal agent of motion in life," which was happening there. So this really, I'm not just offering a cute little antidote or an anecdote. There's actually a point that there are connections between things that are not evident to the senses, but there's still some mechanism of action, right? There's still a relationship. For example, I used to have a really bad temper, and I was talked into first drinking tobacco and then doing an enema with tobacco. And I did not want to, but I did it. And when I came out, the girl who had administered this to me when I came out of the bathroom, she took my hands and she said, "May whatever you were carrying fall to the core of the earth." And in that moment, the house started shaking. Books were falling off the bookcases, and the owner of the place was a blackout drunk, so I thought he crashed his truck into the house or something. I'd never been in an earthquake before, and that's what happened. Whatever I dropped, I did drop something. Did not cause that earthquake. But it was not unconnected either. And it is through the experience of this kind of knowledge, through this observation, that we are even compelled to look into these things. Right? If that guitar string hadn't rung, I wouldn't have considered looking for the cause. So as long as we've engineered all these blind spots around these things by not acknowledging them, we'll never have a holistic understanding of the universe, and therefore we will never be able to integrate its power into our own being, into our collective being, or its wisdom. Such is the sole foundation of these occurrences, which look so marvelous, as we may easily demonstrate at will by reproducing in accordance with rules laid down in the ritual. The most astounding of these phenomena, establishing, as can be done quite simply, the absence of trickery, hallucination, or error. It has frequently happened to me after experiments in the magic chain, performed with persons devoid of good intention or sympathy, that I have been awakened with a start in the night by truly alarming impressions and sensations. On one such occasion, I felt vividly the pressure of an unknown hand attempting to strangle me. I rose up, lit my lamp, and set myself calmly to work, seeking to profit by my wakefulness and to drive away the phantoms of sleep. The books about me were moved with much noise, papers were disturbed and rubbed one against another, timber creaked as if on the point of splitting, and heavy blows resounded on the ceiling. With curiosity, but also with tranquility, I observed all these phenomena, which would not have been less wonderful had they been only the product of my imagination, so real did they seem. For the rest, I may state that I was in no sense frightened, and during this occurrence I was engaged upon something quite foreign to the occult sciences. By the repetition of similar phenomena, I was able to attempt the experience of evocation, assisted by the magical ceremonies of the ancients, when I obtained truly astounding results, which will be set forth in the 13th chapter of this work. And now we are getting into the great work, but we're not going to do it tonight. This is going to be the beginning of the next. I am super excited for this. Let me reorganize my screens and we can chat for a minute. I had planned to go longer tonight, but I'm so hungry that I actually feel weak. So I'm going to go deal with that. But I will hang out for a few more minutes and see if anybody has any questions, comments, subjects. For my patrons, we are getting together on Saturday in the Discord, and Sunday's secret stream is going to be a banger, so don't miss that. And if you're not a patron, you should become a patron, get access to 6 years of premium material, and also you can sign up for blocks of screen time with yours truly if you're interested in learning about any of this stuff directly, undergoing a sort of hybrid psychoanalysis, or learning to play the guitar, or whatever your will proscribes to you. Tomorrow we are on for the Narcissist Parent stream. It's going to be a banger. I think I've been a little bit hesitant even because it's just going to be such a, I'm really going to have to dredge up a lot of darkness to do this subject justice. And I think to an extent I've been kind of evading it. I also, the other night I actually probably could have done the stream. It was storming and then it stopped. But somebody had a cookie for sale at a store in town, and it was cheap, and I knew it had cannabis in it, but it was so cheap I thought it can't be strong, it's just going to be a tiny little, and I forgot that I ate it. And I was sitting here contemplating, like, okay, the storm's gone, It's a little bit late. And then like 3 minutes later, I realized that was my last thought, and I had just been staring at the screen, and I'm like, man, what the hell is wrong with me? And it just suddenly hit me, oh my God, I'm completely stoned, and I haven't touched cannabis in 3 or 4 years, so totally caught off guard. It was miserable. I didn't really like it at all. Once it started to kind of go away and it was more mild, it wasn't so bad. But why is my audio, I don't understand what's happening. Like in here, it's super loud, but then my little meter in the OBS says it's not loud enough. So anyways, guys, let me check the chat and see if we have any questions or comments. Or I know this was a really brief one, but I just wanted to finish that chapter and not, oh no. Oh shit, the other window wasn't live this whole time? You guys missed everything? Shit. Well, if that's true, you guys can go back and watch it on the vertical feed if you really want to. So going once, going twice. Does anybody have questions or subjects for me that they would like my input on? Otherwise, I'm going to go make a sandwich or something. All right. Well, in that case, thank you guys so much. I'll see you tomorrow night. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe, become a patron. And tomorrow night we'll talk about narcissist parents. Boomers.